Some stories don't just scare you, they change you. They stay in the dark corners of your mind, whispering when you're alone, watching when you sleep. Tonight, I'll share 5 of the most disturbing, chilling, and unexplainable horror stories ever told. But a warning, once you hear them, they'll never leave you. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Children have wild imaginations, or so we think. 6-year-old Emma had always been a quiet, sweet child. She played with her dolls, loved bedtime stories, and had an imaginary friend, or so her parents thought. Every night, she'd whisper softly in her room, pausing as if listening. "Emma, who are you talking to?" her mother asked one night. "The whispering man," she replied innocently. Her parents laughed it off. After all, kids have imaginary friends, right? But things changed when they placed a baby monitor in her room. That night, as Emma lay in bed, whispering once again, her mother turned on the monitor and froze. There was another voice, a deep, raspy whisper that wasn't Emma's. "They can't see me, but you can." The mother's blood ran cold. She rushed into Emma's room, but there was no one there. Until they checked the closet. Inside, the closet door was slightly open, and inside there were scratch marks on the wall, as if someone had been watching, waiting, listening. Ever get that feeling someone's watching you? Sometimes it's not just a feeling. Mia had lived alone for years, a cozy apartment, no roommates, total peace. But lately, things felt off. It started with the scratching noises at night. At first, she thought it was rats, but soon the sounds grew louder, closer. One night, she awoke suddenly. It was 3:21 a.m. The room was silent, but she had that gut feeling. She wasn't alone. The next day, she set up a small camera to catch whatever was making those noises. The next morning, when she checked the footage, her stomach dropped. At 2:47 a.m., the camera showed the vent cover sliding open, slowly, silently. Then a hand emerged, fingers curled around the edges, then a face, pale, hollow-eyed, staring, watching. And then, as if it had done this many times before, it crawled out. A thin, emaciated man, moving in unnatural jerks, standing over Mia's bed as she slept. For minutes, he just stood there, breathing, watching. Then, as if sensing the camera, his head snapped toward it, eyes locking on the lens. And in the next moment, he disappeared back into the vents. Mia never lived alone again. Some places never truly abandon their past, and some patients never leave. A new security guard at an abandoned hospital was used to eerie shifts, but something about room 306 felt wrong. Every night, during his rounds, he'd pass by and feel a strange chill, as if the air in that section had never moved. One night, curiosity got the best of him. He decided to check the old patient records. Room 306 had belonged to Michael Turner, a patient who had vanished decades ago. The records stated, "Patient number 46, Michael Turner, declared missing, body never recovered." That night, the guard walked past room 306 again, but this time, the door was open. Inside, a single chair was positioned in the center, facing the wall. And as he stepped closer, he saw something etched into the wall. "I never left." The security cameras caught Daniel running out of the building that night. He never returned. Some basements hold more than just old furniture. A couple moved into an old farmhouse, excited to start fresh. But the previous owner had left one chilling warning. Never go into the basement after midnight. One night, curiosity got the best of them. At 12:03 a.m., they crept downstairs and flipped on the old flickering light. The room was empty, except for a locked wooden box. They pried it open only to find a mirror. And in its reflection, something moved, but there was nothing in the room. Would you pick up a hitchhiker at night? A man was driving down a dark, deserted highway when he saw a girl in a white dress, waving for help. He pulled over. She climbed into the back seat, pale and silent. "Where are you headed?" he asked. No response. He glanced in the rearview mirror. She was gone, but in her seat lay a single, wet footprint. "Still think you're brave?" Have you ever been alone on a train and felt like someone was watching you? Story begins slow creeping dread. Emily was exhausted. It was nearly midnight and she had just finished working overtime. She rushed to catch the last train home. The station was eerily empty. No footsteps, no chatter, just silence. When the train arrived, she stepped inside and looked around. Only one other passenger sat in the far corner. An old man. His head was tilted downward, his hands resting on his lap. He didn't move when she entered. Emily sat far from him and stared at her phone. But as the train started moving, she felt it, a cold, creeping sensation crawling up her spine. She glanced up. The old man was now sitting in the row behind her. She hadn't heard him move. Her breathing quickened. Slowly, she turned back to her phone. Just ignore it. But then, she felt a warm breath against her ear. You shouldn't be here. Her heart slammed against her chest. She jumped up, stumbling backward. But the man was still in his original seat, completely still. The train stopped. She ran off, panting. She turned back one last time and saw the man standing at the window, his mouth stretching into an unnatural, jagged grin. That was the last train Emily ever took alone. The thing in the attic. Some houses have secrets, and some secrets should never be uncovered. Story begins, suspenseful build-up. Liam had always felt something was off about his new apartment. The landlord had given him an unbelievable deal. Spacious, affordable, and in a quiet neighborhood. But there was one rule. Never open the attic door. He didn't question it at first, but at night he'd hear faint shuffling above his ceiling. Soft, deliberate footsteps. Sometimes even a slow dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the wooden floor. One night, curiosity got the best of him. He climbed onto a chair, reached up, and gently nudged the attic door open. A strong, moldy smell hit him instantly. Using his phone flashlight, he peered inside. Dust floated through the air, cobwebs clung to the wooden beams, and then, pause, silence, a faint creak in the background. His light landed on a small mattress, stained, indented, as if someone had been sleeping there. Then, a pair of bloodshot eyes reflected in the light from the corner of the attic. Liam fell off the chair in terror, crashing onto the floor. Scrambling up, he slammed the attic door shut and locked it. The next morning, he packed his bags and left. Later that week, he checked the news. His landlord had been arrested. The police had found a man living in the attic for over 5 years, watching, waiting, crawling down at night while tenants slept. He wasn't the first. The reflection that moved, whispered, suspenseful tone. Mirrors only reflect what's in front of them, right? Story begins, slow build, psychological horror. David hated mirrors. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way they made him feel like he was being watched. One night, after brushing his teeth, he turned off the bathroom light and started walking to bed. But something felt wrong. Something tugged at his mind. He turned back toward the bathroom. The door was still open, the mirror facing him. And inside the mirror, his reflection was still brushing its teeth. His hand wasn't moving, his brush was gone, but in the mirror his reflection was staring back at him, still brushing, slow, deliberate. Then the reflection stopped. It tilted its head and smiled. The bathroom light flickered back on, and the reflection was normal again. But David didn't sleep that night. And from that night on, he covered every mirror in his house. But mirrors remember. Dark, eerie background music. Slow, unsettling tone, fading into whispers. Stories end, but fear stays with you. Pause, silence, a faint breath in the background. Right now you're safe, sitting there watching this video. But what if something was watching you, listening, just beyond your screen? Soft static noise growing louder, then cutting out. Maybe you should check behind you. Silence, then a sudden distorted whisper, too late. Screen glitches violently, cut to black. Final whisper, barely audible. See you soon.